It had always seemed like they were the perfect couple. In their small suburban neighborhood, everyone admired Michael and Laura. They lived in a beautiful house with a white picket fence, and their social media pages were filled with perfect selfies and vacations. Michael, a successful marketing executive, and Laura, a charming schoolteacher, seemed to have it all. They were the kind of couple people envied, yet few knew the dark truths hidden behind their polished exterior. On the surface, they were the kind of couple that appeared to be living the dream. Laura, with her long golden hair and radiant smile, was always the center of attention at any social gathering. Michael, tall and handsome, always stood at her side, beaming proudly at his wife. People admired their relationship, believing it to be filled with love, mutual respect, and understanding. But behind closed doors, Michael was beginning to feel the crushing weight of his wife's sharp tongue and biting remarks. Laura, once the sweet and loving partner he had married, had become someone else entirely. Her behavior had started to shift, her constant need for validation and her tendency to belittle Michael in private were becoming harder to ignore. It started out as small comments here and there. Little jabs that seemed like playful teasing, but soon escalated. At first, Michael thought it was nothing, just Laura being funny or flirtatious with him. But as time went on, the jabs turned into insults, and the insults turned into public humiliations. One afternoon, they were attending a friend's barbecue. The warm summer air was filled with the laughter of their friends, and everyone was enjoying the food and drinks. But things took a dark turn when Laura made a joke at Michael's expense. "You're so lazy," she said loud enough for the entire table to hear. "I swear, the only thing you're good at is sitting around on the couch." The group chuckled, but Michael's face flushed. It wasn't the first time she had embarrassed him in front of their friends, but it stung nonetheless. Laura, on the other hand, seemed to relish the attention. She continued, "Michael's never been much of a man. He prefers doing the bare minimum. Don't you, honey?" Her words lingered in the air like a cloud of humiliation. Michael, trying to keep his cool, forced a smile and nodded. But inside, a storm was brewing. As the weeks passed, the humiliation continued. Laura's insults became more frequent and sharper, always in front of people. It was as if she was testing how much he could take, enjoying the power she had over him. One night, they attended a friend's wedding. Michael had spent hours getting ready, hoping to make a good impression. Laura, however, seemed preoccupied with something else. As they stood in line for drinks, a friend of theirs, Amanda, joked about how Michael always looked so distracted at parties. Laura, with a wicked smile, seized the opportunity. "You're right, Amanda," she laughed, turning toward Michael. "Michael's a great guy, but he's not exactly the life of the party. In fact, I sometimes wonder if he's really even a man. Maybe if he spent less time staring at his phone and more time getting involved in the conversation, he wouldn't be so boring." The laughter that followed was deafening. Michael felt his cheeks burn with embarrassment, but what hurt the most was the smug look on Laura's face as she looked around to see everyone's reaction. She was enjoying this. She loved seeing him squirm. Michael had tried to speak up a few times, telling Laura that her behavior was getting out of hand. But each time, she would laugh it off, saying he was being too sensitive. She would accuse him of not being able to take a joke, making him feel even worse. The problem was, she was right. He didn't know how to stand up for himself. He didn't know how to confront her without it turning into an argument, so he kept quiet. But things were about to change. One fateful evening, Michael found himself in the same social group at a rooftop bar. He had hoped it would be a quiet, relaxing night, but Laura had other plans. She had been drinking a bit more than usual, and her teasing had become more aggressive. "Michael, don't you have anything to say?" she taunted, slurring slightly. "You're always so quiet. You know, I feel like I'm married to a man-child. How did I ever get stuck with someone like you?" The table went silent. Michael could feel every pair of eyes on him. His hands clenched into fists, and his heart began to race. He knew this was the moment. He had to do something, anything, to put an end to the public humiliation. Without thinking, he stood up abruptly, knocking his chair over. "Enough," he shouted, his voice shaking with anger. The entire table froze, and for the first time in a long time, Michael wasn't the one cowering. Laura looked at him, her eyes wide with shock. This wasn't the reaction she was used to. "What did you just say?" she sneered, trying to regain control of the situation. "I've had enough, Laura," Michael said, his voice steady but filled with hurt. "You've been humiliating me for months. No more. I'm done being your punching bag." The room was silent as the tension between the couple hung thick in the air. Everyone was watching, waiting for what would happen next. Laura, who was used to being in control, was caught off guard. She stammered, "What are you talking about? You're overreacting." "No," Michael said firmly. "I'm not overreacting. You've made me feel worthless. You've belittled me in front of our friends, our family, and it stops now." He took a deep breath and continued, "You don't get to talk to me like that anymore. I'm a man, and I deserve respect." There was a long pause. Laura, still processing what was happening, crossed her arms and looked away, trying to maintain her pride. But Michael wasn't finished yet. He turned to their friends, who had been watching in stunned silence. "I don't need your approval, but I want you all to know the truth. I've tried to be the good husband, but it's time for me to stop letting her walk all over me." The rest of the evening was a blur. Laura was silent, her face a mixture of anger and disbelief. She didn't know how to respond to Michael's outburst. When they got home, the tension was palpable. Neither of them spoke a word until they were both in bed, lying in the dark. Michael's heart was racing. He knew that things could never go back to how they were, but he also knew that something had shifted inside of him. He had finally taken control of his own life. The next morning, the house was filled with a heavy silence. Michael woke early, his mind still buzzing with the events of the previous night. He felt an unfamiliar mix of fear and relief. For the first time in years, he had stood up for himself. But now, he had to face the consequences. Laura emerged from their bedroom later than usual, her face unreadable. She poured herself a cup of coffee, avoiding Michael's gaze. The tension was unbearable, but Michael refused to let it break him. He knew they needed to talk, and he wasn't going to back down. Finally, he broke the silence. "We need to talk, Laura." She set her mug down and crossed her arms, still defensive. "About what? Your little performance last night?" Michael sighed. "It wasn't a performance. It was the truth. I've been trying to tell you for months how your behavior is affecting me, but you wouldn't listen. So I had to make you hear me." Laura scoffed. "You're just being dramatic. It was all in good fun." "Good fun?" Michael's voice rose slightly. "Making me feel small in front of everyone we know? That's not fun, Laura. That's cruel. And I won't let it continue." For a moment, Laura looked like she might argue, but then her expression softened. She looked away, biting her lip. "I didn't realize. I didn't think it was that bad." Michael's heart ached at her vulnerability. This was the Laura he had fallen in love with, the one who cared, the one who wasn't afraid to show her softer side. "It is that bad, Laura. I love you, but this has to stop. We need to work on this, together, or we're not going to make it." Laura sat down, her defenses crumbling. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Michael. I guess. I thought it was harmless. But now I see I've been wrong." Michael nodded, his tone gentle but firm. "We've both made mistakes, but it's time to fix them. If we want this marriage to work, we need to respect each other. That starts now." Over the next few weeks, Michael and Laura began the hard work of rebuilding their relationship. They sought couples therapy, where they unpacked years of unspoken resentment and miscommunication. Laura learned to recognize the pain her words have caused, while Michael gained the confidence to assert himself without fear. It wasn't easy. There were arguments, tears, and moments of doubt. But slowly, they began to rediscover the love and respect that had brought them together in the first place. Their friends noticed the change, too. At their next social gathering, Laura made a conscious effort to lift Michael up instead of tearing him down. When someone commented on Michael's quiet nature, Laura smiled and said, "That's because he's always thinking. Michael has the sharpest mind of anyone I know." Michael smiled back at her, grateful for the progress they had made. Months later, Michael and Laura were stronger than ever. They had learned to support each other, to communicate openly, and to treat each other with the kindness and respect that every marriage needs to thrive. Their friends still saw them as the perfect couple, but now, that perfection was grounded in authenticity, not appearances. Michael and Laura had faced their flaws, and in doing so, they had found a deeper, more genuine connection. As they stood together at another barbecue, Laura slipped her hand into Michael's and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on us." Michael squeezed her hand and smiled. "Thank you for listening." The journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. For the first time in years, they were truly partners, ready to face whatever challenges life might throw their way, together. If you enjoyed this thrilling journey, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, And turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on the latest content. Share this story with your friends, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay tuned for more suspenseful adventures.